Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Jamunamaya Gangamaya Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. Transcendental Prasadam Distribution Ki Jai. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. Their Divine Lordship Shri Shri Rukmini Dwarkadish Ki Jai. Their Divine Lordship Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Shrimati Subhadra Ki Jai. Their Divine Lordship Shri Shri Gaurnitaya Ki Jai. Gaur Pramananda Hare Hare Bo. All glories to all the assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All glories to all the assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All glories to all the assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Shri Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Krishna Sai Bhutale Srimati Jai Patak Swami Swami. Namo Vishnu Krishna Sai Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Swami. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni Namaste Swami Vadi Paschatada Swami. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So today we're continuing our reading from the 10th canto, the Saman Bonam. This is chapter 10, Deliverance of the Jamula Arjuna trees. Jamala Arjuna trees. And we're on text number 10. Deva Samgitam Api Ante Deva Samgitam Apyante Krimi Vid Bhasma Samgitam Krimi Vid Bhasma Samgitam Bhuta Druk Tatkrite Swartam Bhuta Druk Tatkrite Swartam Kim Veda Nirayo Yataha Kim Veda Narayo Yataha Deva Samyitam Apyante Krimi Vid Bhasma Samyitam Bhuta Druk Tatkrite Swartam Kim Veda Nirayo Yataha Deva Samyitam Apyante Krimi Vid Bhasma Samgitam Bhuta Druk Tatkrite Swartam Kim Veda Nirayo Yataha. Vaishnavis. Devasam Yitam. The body now known as a very exalted person, like president, minister, or even demigod. Api, even if the body is so exalted. Ante, after death. Creamy, turns into worms. Vit, or into stool. Basmasam Gitam, or into ashes. Bhutaduk, a person who does not accept the shastric injunctions and is unnecessarily envious of other living entities. Tat krite, by acting in that way. Swa artam, self-interest. Kim, who is there? Veda, who knows? Nirya, yata, because from such sinful activities one must suffer hellish conditions. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. While living, one may be proud of one's body, thinking oneself a very big man, minister, president, or even demigod. But whatever one may be, after death, this body will turn either into worms, into stool, or into ashes. If one kills poor animals to satisfy the temporary whims of this body, one does not know that he will suffer in his next birth. For such a sinful miscreant must go to hell and suffer the results of his actions. Do you want to repeat that? Okay. While living, one may be proud of one's body, thinking oneself a very big man, minister, president, or even demigod. But whatever one may be, after death his body will turn either into worms, into stool, or into ashes. If one kills poor animals to satisfy the temporary whims of this body, one does not know that he will suffer in his next birth. For such a sinful miscreant must go to hell and suffer the results of his actions. It's pretty heavy. Who's speaking here? Does anybody know who's speaking? Who's speaking these verses? Who? No, Narada Muni is speaking. Actually, Narada Muni is shouting. He's talking to the Nalakavira and Manigriva. But he's actually shouting so that we can hear it also. Not just those two guys, but everyone. So that's why we're hearing it today. So purport by Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, the three words Krimivid Bhashma are very significant. After death, the body may become creamy, which means worms. Or if the body is disposed of without cremation, it may be eaten by worms, or else it may be eaten by animals like hogs and vultures, and be turned into stool. Those who are more civilized burn the dead body, and thus it becomes ashes, bhashma samnitam. Yet although the body will be turned into worms, stool, or ashes, foolish persons, just to maintain it, commit many sinful activities. This is certainly regrettable. The human form of body is actually meant for jivasya tattva jignasya. enlightenment in knowledge of spiritual values. Therefore, one must seek shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. Tasmad gurum prabhajita. One must approach a guru. Who is a guru? Who is a guru? Shabde parecha nishnatam. From the Bhagavatam 11.3.21. A guru is one who has full transcendental knowledge. Unless one approaches a spiritual master, one remains in ignorance. Acharyavan Purusho Veda. That's from the Chandogya Upanishad 6.14.2. One has full knowledge about life when one is Acharyavan, controlled by the Acharya. But when one is conducted by Rajoguna and Tamaguna, one does not care about anything. Instead, one acts like an ordinary foolish animal, risking his life. Mrityu samsara vartmani, Bhagavad Gita 9.3. And therefore, continuing to go through suffering after suffering. Nate vidu sartakatim hi vishnum, Bhagavatam 7.5.31. Such a foolish person does not know how to elevate himself in this body. Instead, he indulges in sinful activities and goes deeper and deeper into hellish life. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksus Unmilitamena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Upakada Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Vanchakopa Tubhischa Kripasindu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Wow, what a section and what a verse here. So I'll repeat one more time. While living, one may be proud of one's body, thinking oneself a very big man, minister, president, or even a demigod. But whatever one may be, after death, this body will turn either to worms, into stool, or into ashes. If one kills poor animals to satisfy the temporary whims of this body, one does not know that he will suffer in his next birth. For such a sinful miscreant must go to hell and suffer the results of his actions. So Narada Muni is really heavy. And that's who the guru is. He's very heavy with knowledge. And sometimes that knowledge comes in the form of, like Prabhupada mentioned, a pinch. Sometimes the parent will pinch the child to get him to do something, wake him up or take your medicine or something. So this is like a pinch. It's a chastisement. And this is actually more than a chastisement. Sometimes you may chastise somebody and they'll just say, oh, forget you. Or these guys, they're so intoxicated, what good is chastisement going to do? They were actually thinking, what are you doing here? We're enjoying here. Why don't you go somewhere else? Why do you have to come here? If you're disturbed, then that's your problem. But actually, they were not able to listen probably, so Narada Muni could see the whole situation and he cursed them. So with the curse, there's no way you could not, I could chastise you and you could just take it or leave it. But a curse, you're forced to take it. And this is what happened. This is the mercy of the Guru. And we may think this is pretty heavy, but we'll see that the Guru is so expert that he's only interested in elevating that person. He's always seeing what's the best for this person. And that's what Narada Muni did. He actually selected. He was very merciful. Devotees are traveling everywhere just to see how they can deliver the conditioned souls. That's their mercy. So these two puffed up demigods are very, very fortunate to get Narada Muni's association. So in this purport, Srila Prabhupada gives some very interesting references. And I'd just like to touch on those. In the first one here, Srila Prabhupada talks about this life's desires. He quotes that verse from the first canto, I believe it is. So where is it? Yeah, first canto, chapter 2. This is the one. Kamasya nindriya pritir, labo jiveta yavata, Jivasya tattva jignasya nartoyas cheha karma bi. Life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation. Since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth, nothing else should be the goal of one's works. So Prabhupada's hinting here in this purport also, what is the purpose of life? The purpose of life is not to actually become very opulent, very wealthy, and try to enjoy. Everyone is caught in this net. We talk about the World Wide Web, but this www is wealth, wine, and women. .org or .com. Then comes gambling and meat eating. Instead of .com, it's GOM. Gambling and meat eating. So this is what the whole world is. Their number one goal is to achieve wealth, financial independence, economic development. And Prabhupada talks about this economic development as unnecessary. And that's why people are so unhappy. They're actually trying to attain something more than what they're destined to have. And that's why people are so unhappy. They don't realize that actually what I've gotten is what I've deserved. It's because of my past desires, because of my past karma. So let me just be happy with what I have and try to inquire into the absolute truth. That's the whole purpose of life. When we're striving and striving, I need this, I have to keep up with that. And then we're just completely engrossed and in a mad race. Going where? Going nowhere. Going to hell, actually. So in the purport to that particular verse, I'd like to just read one. Actually, it's one big sentence by Srila Prabhupada. He says here, seekers of the absolute truth are never lured by unnecessary engagements in sense gratification, because the serious students seeking the absolute truth are always overwhelmed with the work of searching for the truth. Actually, that's one sentence. And then the second sentence. In every sphere of life, therefore, the ultimate end must be seeking after the absolute truth. And that sort of engagement will make one happy, because he will be less engaged in varieties of sense gratification, and what that absolute truth is explained as follows. That's going throughout the whole Bhagavatam. So that was one quote. Srila Prabhupada's given us the idea of what the purpose of life is. And then the next one here is talking about this Tasmat Guru. And this is from the 10th canto, actually. There's a reference I found there, which he also mentions this. He talks about a sadhu. A sadhu is Suida Sarva. He's very merciful to all. So here, this is the verse Prabhupada quoted. Let's see, I'll go to the beginning here. Here it is. Tasmad gurum prapajeta jignashasreya uttamam sabde parecha nishnatam brahmani upasamarayam. Therefore a person, any person, doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, who seriously desires real happiness must seek a bona fide spiritual master and take shelter of him by initiation. The qualification of a bona fide guru is that he has realized the conclusions of the scriptures by deliberation and is able to convince others of these conclusions. Such great personalities who have taken shelter of the Supreme Godhead, leaving aside all material considerations, should be understood to be bona fide spiritual masters. So Prabhupada's telling us the purpose of life, and now he's telling us what's the process of achieving that purpose, and that is to approach a spiritual master no matter who you are. So in this very long purport Srila Prabhupada gives, and he talks all kinds of quotes about the spiritual master, the guru, the great souls. It's a very wonderful purport if you get a chance to read that. That's in the 11th canto, 3rd chapter, text 21. Oh, it's not? Oh, that's right. Okay, sorry about that. That is not Prabhupada's purport, but it's by Prabhupada's disciples. And they're quoting Prabhupada mostly, and the acharyas. Okay, so there's a nice sentence in here I'd like to read also. The bona fide spiritual master broadcasts the sound vibration from the spiritual planets called Vaikuntha Loka. The inhabitants of the spiritual planets, headed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, are certainly not deaf and dumb. They are in constant communication through unlimited transcendental bliss and knowledge. And the bona fide spiritual master can transmit this sound vibration of bliss and knowledge to his disciple. Just as a radio broadcasts mundane news, the bona fide guru broadcasts the news from Vaikuntha. This is confirmed by Narottama Das Thakur, Gaudacandra Prabhu Harinama Sankirtan. The spiritual master also transmits the disciple the holy name of Krishna, which is non-different from Krishna himself. So this is the process, this is what the guru does. And Prabhupada mentions, even in this particular chapter that we're reading of the 10th canto, the importance of associating with sadhus. And Prabhupada even goes so far as to say who a sadhu is. He gives a definition of a sadhu: they're tolerant, merciful, kind, all their characteristics are sublime. He quotes this, and he says that this sadhu should be approached by anyone, even if you're rich. And then he says here, why then should the rich, instead of associating with the sadhus, waste their valuable time in associating with other rich men who are averse to spiritual life? Both the poor man and the rich man can take advantage of the Krishna consciousness movement. And here it is advised that everyone do so. There is no profit in avoiding the association of the members of the Krishna consciousness movement. So he says so powerfully that he's defining sadhus. So Prabhupada wanted us as Krishna consciousness movement members to become sadhus, to develop these qualities, be merciful, kind, tolerant, all these things. So he's encouraging people to take advantage of this Krishna consciousness movement, because we're not interested in associating with rich people, the devotees. They're not interested in sense gratification. And this is why Narada Muni cursed these two puffed up brothers, because they were very, very proud of their riches. And when one is very proud, he will never approach anybody very humbly to learn. He thinks he knows it all. In fact, he'll give you a piece of his mind. So this is one of the curses, that you become poverty-stricken. And therefore, in poverty-striction, you'll become humble. Because you're always in need, and you want this and that. Probably don't even have enough clothes to wear or food to get. So you get in a very humble position. So this is actually a blessing in disguise, so that they can, and this is the blessing that they got, is that by being humble, you can be approached by a saintly person. We could see, I had a experience of this just the other day. Many devotees go for walks up to the park, up on the hill there where the baseball parks are, and even higher. And I was walking up there chanting with my beads. And then all of a sudden this gentleman comes out of his car. It's like a nice looking car. And he approaches me. Can I ask you a question? And I was like, yeah, So, but I noticed there was tears in his eyes. And he's like, what do you do when everything around you is just falling apart? I lost my girlfriend. I lost my job. I lost everything. I don't know what to do. I'm completely lost. So this is what happens in the mature world. It takes you to a point where eventually, if you become proud, you lose everything. But while you're proud, you think that guy, if he was proud, really rolling in the box and had his girlfriend there, that he would approach me? And why did he approach me? There's so many other people walking past me, jogging, doing so many things. I wasn't even dressed like a devotee, but I had my bead bag. But somehow or another, Krishna inspired him to approach me. Not that I'm a saintly person, but somehow or another, we began to have a discussion. And it was cold. The sun wasn't even risen yet. It was light outside, but the sun wasn't coming down over the hill. But we're talking about the hard facts of life and so many different things. Karma, he was asking questions. And he wasn't crazy, so that was a relief. But he was very sincere. He was humbled. He lost everything. And then when eventually he started to get it, he started to understand, and he actually started to have a smile on his face, and I got through to him a little bit. And that's when the sun just rose over the hill, and the brightness. And we both started laughing. He laughed too. He goes, yeah, now I could feel the warmth. And he was experiencing that. So we could see that Prabhupada wanted the members of the Krishna consciousness movement to give this association. And there's so many people out there suffering. And if we're there, some or another we can help. We're right in the middle of the 10th canto. The nectar pastimes of Krishna, the butter thief, and his loving devotees, his loving mother, and how he's controlled by love. But right within this pastime, we see there's a deliverance of these rascals. These puffed up, intoxicated rascals. And this is actually the mood of Vrindavan, is to have concern for other suffering living entities. And Krishna was there. While he's enjoying his pastimes, he had this concern for these suffering rascals. And he delivered them. And we see Srila Prabhupada did the same thing. He was in Vrindavan, very comfortable. But what is the mood of Vrindavan? Is to have this compassion and love for all conditioned souls. And he left Vrindavan and he came here. And he created Vrindavan everywhere. All over the world there's Vrindavan. We're in Vrindavan now just because of Srila Prabhupada's kindness. Because he left Vrindavan to come here and bring Vrindavan. So this is the association of the devotees. Prabhupada says, therefore one should not avoid association of Vaishnavas, which is now available all over the world in the form of the Krishna consciousness movement. So you see how fortunate people are around here. A wonderful Harinam party going out, nice prasadam being distributed, devotees going out and distributing books, very nice, wonderful festivals, programs going on. So it's just amazing. We're very fortunate. So there's another quote Srila Prabhupada goes through in the purport here. He says, the Charyavam, that unless one accepts the Acharya, that he doesn't know anything. So Prabhupada says, we must follow the Acharya. And if you don't follow an Acharya, then you don't know anything. If you do follow the Acharya, then you know everything. And what's the symptom of how do we know that this person knows everything? Like you may approach me, what do you know? I don't know anything. What do you know? I don't know anything. But how is it that you know everything though? It's because you have a guru, a spiritual master. And that's what this sacred thread means. The upayana means bringing nearer. The fallen soul is brought nearer to the spiritual master, and then he begins to see he is very competent. And he brings him closer to Krishna. And then he gives him the sacred thread. Then he's called a Brahmana. And this is a symbol that he has approached an Acharya. This is that one, Acharyavan. So that's another quote Prabhupada mentioned in the purport. And then he mentions this other one, Mityu. This one here, Mityu Samsara Vartmani. And this is from the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada's quoting. This is that verse 9.3. Ashradana Purusho, or Purusha, Dharmasha Parantapa, Aprapya Mam Nivartante, Mityu Samsara Vartmani. Those who are not faithful in this devotional service cannot attain me, O conqueror of enemies. Therefore they return to the path of birth and death in this material world. So this faith is very important, Prabhupada mentions in his purport. That it's created how? By association with devotees. But unfortunate people, even after hearing all the evidence of the Vedic scriptures from great personalities, they still don't have any faith of God. They're hesitant. And therefore they can't be fixed in devotional service. So Prabhupada's mentioning in the purport that this faith is the most important factor for progress in Krishna consciousness. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita it is said that faith is a complete conviction that simply by serving the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, one can achieve all perfection. That is called real faith. So this is very nice. This faith is so important. And we know that we just celebrated Lord Nityananda's appearance day. It was a very auspicious time. And he was distributing this Krishna consciousness. And what was the price, he said, that you have to pay? What's the price? It's simply your faith. So this is our price. This is what you can pay. It doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor. You have this faith. You can just give it to Krishna. So this is so important. So then there's another verse. There's a lecture Prabhupada gave on this particular Bhagavad Gita verse. And he says that those who are not interested in Raja Vidya, devotional service, they have no faith. And what's the result of that? He does not get me, Krishna is saying. They do not get me. And they don't know the mission of life is to go back home, back to Godhead. So this is the real mission, see? We want to go back home, back to Godhead. But see, they don't know that. So that's the confidential part of the Bhagavad Gita, the 9th chapter. Okay, so the last verse that Srila Prabhupada quotes here is from Prahlad Maharaj. This is in the 7th canto, 5th chapter. And this is the verse. Nate vidhu swartakatim hi vishnum drasya ye bahir arta manina anda yatandar upani yamanas te pisha tantram urudamni badaha. So Hiranyakashipu challenges his son. If you didn't get this knowledge from your teachers, then where did you get it? So Prahlad Maharaj answers him. So here's this is actually the 2nd verse of that. So Prahlad says, because of their uncontrolled senses, persons too addicted to materialistic life make progress toward hellish conditions and repeatedly chew that which has already been chewed. Their inclinations toward Krishna are never aroused, either by the instructions of others, by their own efforts, or by the combination of both. So this is Prahlad Maharaj Brohevi. So this is the 2nd verse, his answering his father. Persons who are strongly, this is what Prabhupada quoted, this particular verse. Persons who are strongly entrapped by the consciousness of enjoying material life and who have therefore accepted as their leader or guru a similar blind man attached to external sense objects cannot understand that the goal of life is to return home back to Godhead and engage in the service of the Lord Vishnu. As blind men guided by another blind man miss the right path and fall into a ditch, materially attached men led by another materially attached man are bound by the ropes of fruitive labor, which are made of very strong cords, and they continue again and again in materialistic life, suffering the threefold miseries. So this is Prahlad Maharaj, and this is what Prabhupada is referring to, that to see how the association is so important. It's so important. So this is, we see the Guru, and we learned just yesterday how the Guru is a representative of Lord Nityananda. His Balaram. He's the Prakash Tattva. This Prakash means illumination. So Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, they appear like the sun and the moon, and they appear together to dissipate the darkness of this ignorance of the mature world. And what is this rising? Srila Prabhupada gave a nice lecture. He talks about the Mayapur temple. And what do you call it? The Mayapur Chandrodaya. How's that go? Mayapur Chandra Mandir. Yeah, Chandrodaya Mandir. And he said, this is Lord Chaitanya, his rising. He's distributing moonshine throughout the world. You know, like this. So Krishna came in this form of a devotee to distribute this love of Godhead. So this sun is very important. Just like the lotus flower, we're like a lotus flower. And by this receiving this sunshine, this moonshine from Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, it opens the lotus flower. And this knowledge we get to receive. In fact, we can't even exist without the sunshine or the moonshine. So we have to be so grateful. So we're in a very, Prabhupada mentions that this is a very barbaric, animalistic, pathetic situation of the world. Very hopeless situation. He says, how can one be happy in an assembly of animals? Right? Especially if they're intoxicated. Now these brothers, they're doubly intoxicated. Intoxicated with their wealth, which makes you blind. And we know from wealth, all these other sinful activities come. This is where we know Kali resides, right? Kali asked for a place to reside because he couldn't find illicit sex, meeting, gambling, intoxication anywhere. He said, you have to give me some place, because when you're here, there's none of these. So he said, okay, you may reside where there's the gold standard, where there's wealth. So we have to be very careful with wealth, because in wealth then comes this pride, which is very intoxicating. They were intoxicated by pride. Plus they're intoxicated by this special beverage that they were taking, so they're doubly intoxicated. So this is the situation of the mature world in Kali Yuga. So there's a great need of a wholesale overhaul of human society. And that's the purpose of our scriptures, that's the purpose of the saintly devotees, the saints, the incarnations of Krishna. It's only one purpose, is to turn God's children back to Him. And these saintly persons, we see that they know everything. And this knowledge they receive from the disciplic session is not mundane, it's actually perfect. Because anything that comes from a perfect source, Krishna, it's without mistakes, defects, illusion, madness. It's perfect. So therefore we should actually take that up. In this intoxicated state, we see people think, oh, I'm not going to die. But actually, they don't realize that this is the most wonderful thing. Everybody's living and they're thinking, we see people dying all around us, but they think, oh, I'll never die. This is the most wonderful thing. But actually we will die, and we'll end up in these three ways, either stool, ashes, or worms. So these are the three, what could you say, the goals of the body. But we're not the body. And while this body just comes and goes, in the midtime, you want to go and make the worst activities to cause suffering to others and to yourself. Actually, it's not only we're killing animals, but the atmaha, we actually kill ourselves by performing sinful activities. By dying, taking birth again, killing, suffering, killing. This is what we're doing, we're killing the soul. The soul can't be killed, but it suffers through this mature world. So this is the mercy of Narada Muni actually removed their pride. And this is what happens when one becomes poverty-stricken. He has to automatically perform austerities. He automatically becomes prideless. Automatically his senses become weaker. We see people becoming more and more strong to make their senses stronger so they can enjoy more. So this is the benefits of poverty, of austerity, of these things, of humility. Because the core of the heart has to be purified. As described in the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, that all this contamination is due to weakness of the heart. And what's this weakness of the heart? In the core, we just want to enjoy more and more, and we want to increase it more and more. So this is what needs to be purified. And that's what the devotees come. Lord Chaitanya actually automatically, he willingly accepted sannyas. He willingly gave up everything, accepted poverty, just to help the conditioned souls. Just to chase the illusion living entities who are chasing illusory things in the mature world, just to give them the mercy. And we see that this guru-ness, this heaviness of the guru is there all throughout the Bhagavatam. We see Narada Muni being very heavy with these two brothers. We see Krishna was very heavy with Arjuna. We see Vidura was very heavy with his brother. Tell me, you're like a dog. You're accepting things from the people you've tried to kill. So these are actually their greatest well-wishers. And we see these two brothers. They were in Vrindavan, and we heard that they were cursed to remain conscious. It's not they were just conscious of what they did and have to just sit there and moan on their nonsense activities. But they were conscious there. They were actually in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj, and they witnessed all the childhood pastimes of Krishna. There's even a book, it's called the Gopala Champu, I believe, where there's two narrators, and they're talking all about the pastimes of Krishna. And when they were talking about all these pastimes of Krishna, I said, who are you? And they said, we were there. We were trees. We were observing all these activities, because they were describing it like if they were like from an aerial view of all these pastimes. And there were these huge trees that were there witnessing all these pastimes. So this is the mercy of the Guru. He gave them the opportunity to get absorbed in Krishna, and then ultimately see Krishna face to face and delivered them. So this is very wonderful. So I'd like to just end with one quote. This is from the song we sing every year from the Damodar Astakam. O Lord Damodar, as a baby tied to a grinding mortar, you delivered Kuvera's 2 sons from the curse of Narada and made them into great devotees. In the same way, please give me pure loving devotion for you. I long for this alone and have no desire for any kind of liberation. So that should be our prayer. Jai. So thank you very much. Any comments or questions? Realizations? Yes, Mother. And utility is the principle. Purity is the force. I'm not sure he's here. I couldn't hear you hardly. Yeah. Is there 4? Let's see. 4? Purity is force. Utility is... Oh yeah, books are the basis. That's the other one. Yeah. Okay, so there's books are the basis, utility is the principle, purity is the force, and preaching is the essence. See? Jai. Okay, any other questions? Yes, Prabhu.
I understand that after death, the body will either turn into ashes, or worm, or stew. But what about the body of the demigods? For example, the demigods in the sun planet. What about their body?
They turn into vapor. No, I don't know. I have no idea. But they're subtle bodies, right? They're made of mind, intelligence, and ego. It's still a material element, but it's subtle. So yeah, they're temporary also. They get annihilated when the universe gets annihilated. Or sometimes they actually go back to Godhead in those forms. There's cases of that. So you can go there and find out yourself. Become a demigod? No. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? All right, well, thank you very much for your kind attention. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.